Yes, Dr. Walid.
Do you need a mic?
No. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. The mic is used to sound it.
In a sense, I respond to that sentiment. So that's why I was wanting to go without that. But two specific questions. One for Mr. Kalikesh Singh Dev and the other for Mr. Chaudhary. Mr. Dev, you mentioned about the efforts that are on in India to move towards market-based pricing of the economy in several segments. Now, I wanted your opinion on the conflict that's being experienced between these two approaches. One is a market-based economic prosperity approach, vis-a-vis the more inclusive, rights-based approach to development. Clearly, there are two spectrums and two cross-section views on this. Now, what I'm trying to sense is that when you look at it from a politician's perspective, or even from an authority perspective, let's say a measure like the food security bill or the NREG. Now, they obviously have their own benefits in terms of social inclusion, but they also mean a fairly large burden on the government exchequer. And it's difficult to manage. I mean, with that on one side, you can't really talk about a free market policy. Now, how do you handle that? That's number one. And my question for Mr. Chaudhary is that, Mr. Chaudhary, you mentioned about the management of resources in India. And I want to specifically draw your attention to climate and natural resources. We see India playing a very active role when it comes to climate negotiations globally. But at the domestic level, and particularly at the political level, does it resonate with the constituencies that you figure in, or the debates that you undertake? Because, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I have ever seen environmental resources featuring in any political agenda or election party campaign. So how do you see this discourse getting resolved?
Yeah.
I don't see a real conflict in the idea of an open economy or free trade versus the social schemes that you actually bring about. In fact, to me, they go hand in hand, because to raise the resources to put into the NREGAs or the Food Security Act, you need to drive investments into your country. You need to raise investments, you need to raise business, so you get taxes out of it. Yes, there is an ideological conflict of what you are doing, but if you look at it practically, you can actually drive up investments with a freer market economy and take the taxes or money that you get out of that and put it into a social welfare scheme, which is what India has been doing in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't know, actually, I feel like responding to that question also.
Yeah. Carry on.
See, I have a different view, and that's that if the state will give the price signals and monopolize the markets, then it is difficult to free the markets for other investors. And specifically, I'm talking about the food market. I don't want to say much more because we are in a position where, but I have my doubts on those issues. If the state monopoly over food markets will continue for a long time, I don't see private trade coming up. I don't see investment in food processing and more back-end sort of logistics. And that's what we need to do right now. If we are talking about agricultural reform, how to connect our farmers and producers to the markets in a more efficient manner, then I don't see state procurement being the answer. Yes, if you want to solve the hunger issue, then you need to do something about our storage, you need to do something about all the grain that is rotting. But I don't know how does the equation sort of equalize? That's a challenge. On environmental issues that you've raised, you're right, in a sense that for us, our principal problem is that you don't have access to energy. Large parts of our country, and a majority of our population, does not have access to clean forms of energy. So therefore, right now, the access question that I wanted overrides how I get it for the voter. So he doesn't care. He will burn any fossil fuel that he has access to as long as it gives him light. Because without electricity, you can't fight poverty. Issues of education, issues of poverty are all related to access to energy. So that is the principal question, and I suppose when the basic access question gets solved is when policymakers will then wake up, but then it might be too late. I personally feel that there is no need for us to go for the same, follow the same path and have the same legacy generational issues that other countries have today. We have the luxury of starting late, so we can adopt the best technologies. I think from a policy perspective, we have moved in the right direction. Our domestic policies on energy efficiency, every state today has started to come out with a renewable energy policy. They have a special department looking at it. Our MPs are contributing a large amount of the resources to giving, say, solar lamps at the village level. So, and people are more aware of it and appreciative of it. So things are changing. From policy perspective, India has been a big mover on the international global stage. And I see it also as an opportunity, the way China has grasped it and in a sense gone ahead of India in Copenhagen. This sort of surprised us. I think it's an opportunity for for enhancing our research capabilities and for domestic industry also to grow.
Professor Mani?
One suggestion which you can still discard, and the second question which I want you to be very objective, not parliamentary. The suggestion is about functioning of the parliament. You have a right to dissent. You have a right to oppose the policy initiative. You should make your point. But if numbers are not with you, democracy does not permit you to stop that legislation. This is a dilemma because after all you are consuming poor taxpayers' money like ours without delivering, and it's not fair to you, to your constituency, to your people. So this is the suggestion you might still discard. The question is, please tell us something about the electoral dynamics in your respective constituencies. Is it still dynasty dominated? Is it still caste dominated? Do you use money when you have to win elections? Or it is changing? I'm not saying that you will not use money at all, but in terms of the change, in terms of how it is functioning, do you see a change coming, and would you like a change to be introduced rather than working on the old parameters of caste and family relations?
I think I'll start. It's an excellent question for Professor Mani. So I would like each one of you to respond. He asked a very good question.
Yes.
Okay.
I think, every state in India has a different dynamic. One of the reasons we have so many applause. So one of the reasons, yes, I'm just going to address your suggestion first, one you made. One of the reasons we have so many applause is because we have supposed to have a very federal form of government. But in reality, in practice, it's fairly unitary, fairly centralized, the way it functions. And as a result of which, a lot of regional parties have come up, reflecting state aspirations. These don't have the large numbers to overturn legislation or run governments or vote governments out, but they've been running state governments for a long time. And because there's a frustration in the system where Samajwadi Party from UP or Jain from UP or me from Orissa, our parties who run the state governments there, are not able to communicate a point effectively in Parliament. Therefore, this could be a possible issue of why there's the dissent is announced. As I said,
To change our country, we need laws. Laws are made in Parliament.
one state cannot run the country.
Not in the Assembly.
And secondly, in my state of Orissa, we don't have caste-based politics. It's purely done on who they believe is the best candidate for them. Yes, there are party loyalties, there are registered or affiliated party voters, but that changes frequently. And that's not constant when you have elections at the same time for the state and the central government, state government and central government. In my case, this time, 2009 when I fought, we also had the state government elections. Out of 7 of my MLAs who were fighting along with me, 3 lost quite badly. Yet in those constituencies, I won by 20,000, 25,000 votes. So it really is done on the basis of what the voters believe is good or bad for them.
First of all,
your suggestion that I agree with you. There shouldn't be that there is a complete washout of the session. I agree with you that shouldn't happen, and there should be a law made against it. You are right. We should show our dissent and move on. There should be debate. Our party, Samajwadi Party, because we are a regional party, we said in last session also that there should be debate on FDI. But our principal opposition party, I shouldn't say anything because none of the members are here, didn't agree.
They walked out.
They walked out.
They didn't walk out. Today's meeting.
So, I agree with you. Public opinion is also changing on that. So I agree with your point. Second, in my constituency, first of all, you asked dynastic hierarchy goes on or not. Caste. Dynastic, because my father was MP from that constituency since '77. So after that, I contested. I'm against dynastic policy when the party approves of that. When you make a child Rajya Sabha MP, but if you contest a Lok Sabha election, where people have to choose that he is right or wrong. After my father passed away, I went to the constituency, worked there for 1 year, and people saw that I will be able to solve their problems or work for them. Then only they voted for me. And they voted for me again in the next general election. So I have contested 2 elections. It is up to the people. People say that Gandhi family has been ruling for last 65 years in India. But they, no, but if people want them, then it's up to the people of the country. It's not people who comment that there shouldn't be any dynastic or the child shouldn't be allowed to enter politics because he belongs to certain family. It is up to the people. I won by more than 1.5 lakh votes. So people have thought that I might work better. So, and caste equation is slowly moving out. As not, Odisha it might be very less, but Uttar Pradesh still caste factor is there, but not in the sense every caste. There are few castes which vote for their caste people only, but majority of them are changing. They look for a better candidate who can work for them, who is there when they need him, and party is the major thing now. Party, to which party you belong to, is a major thing. In Lok Sabha election, the candidate also is a major thing. But in assembly elections, the party is what people look at. So, and money, I don't want to comment on that because Mr. Munde has already made a comment in the, and election commission is after him. So, but everybody knows how elections are fought. In Singapore, I was surprised to know MPs were giving food grains to their constituents. I never knew that happened in Singapore also. We went to some place and there was some wheat and rice, and those were given to poor people. So it is there in all the countries. People in some way or the other try to. That's not buy votes. We can't say if we cannot buy 1.8 million votes. I'm sorry, this is not Singapore or India. Is different equation. A Lok Sabha MP with 1.8 million people as their electorate can't buy votes. If you start paying, you will need 100 crores to fight an election. That is not possible. Even now in Lok Sabha, in my party, people don't have car. The MPs don't have car to communicate, so to commute. So there are different things. People see overall. Some people have money to contest election, but all member of parliaments don't have. They go to the people and ask for vote, and people elect them.
I see the spirit of the question, because that's something that gets thrown at us all the time. I appreciate that. But let me be the devil's advocate. First of all, voter has a very complex matrix when they go and vote. It's not a simplistic analysis that just my caste and I just support my caste. Like Neeraj was describing, a lot of issues come into the picture. The quality of the candidate, his message, how hectic his campaigning was, did he come to my door or not. It's a very individualized decision today. Today in every family, the brother is not voting with his father, the other son is not voting with their father, the wife may not vote along with the husband. So it's a very individual decision. So yes, caste is part of that matrix, but you know, politics without identity will lose its charm. And globally, if you see, there's some aspect of an individual's identity that gets used and is part and parcel of the political campaign. You could be Catholic, Protestant, whatever issue, your identity will be part of the message. And that's a human sort of, it's human to do that. I don't think you can have politics completely devoid of emotion or of identity. Money, you know, in my grandfather's time, they would go to villages, and according to the land that they had, the people in the villages would raise the money and give. And he would say that, you know, I need this money to fight from Uttar Pradesh. He would raise the money and say, I need it to fight from Odisha. So, you know, money today, you need more and more of it. And if you look at sort of the civilized Western world where democracy is a great ideal, and like, you know, you said the spirit on the street is that we are, you know, we have all for freedom, and, you know, look at these Indians, they're divided by caste and race and religion. So, but even there, more and more money is being pumped. And if you look at the way the Democrats funded their campaign, and amount of money, amount of lobbying behind every bill, so you can't take money out of the equation. But what has changed today is that the average Indian, there is a loss of faith that I sense. Our voting percentages are going down, and that's a cause of worry. And the way people raised resources and gave to political parties and funded campaigns, that amount is also going down. Yes, we still raise money. You know, when we go in UP, you go to a village, people still give you. But that has gone down. So even in India, you see more organized lobbying taking place. Question is, resources will get used tomorrow. We'll need more resources for politics. How they get raised and how they get utilized, whether there is transparency in that process or not, is a fair question.
Yes, Sushant.
The question is quite different. Like, I fight election in a different issue, and they fight election in a very different issue. In my constituency, this is not a Assam, the northeastern state, Assam and all other northeastern. We are not based on any caste and all, because we are open to marry with any others. Like, it was since very primitively. So we don't have that kind of caste systems. And we win basically on the strength of our workers, Indian National Congress workers. And we are having a very good organizational structure in this party, because man-to-man connect, and the party workers works for the villages, or like that we do, and we generally fight elections on their strength. And about the money and all, we don't have to spend so much of money in our area, because on winnability comes on the development and outlook of the persons who is contesting. Like I am, last time I contested against a person who was once a terrorist, and he has killed around 65 people in my constituency. He was a militant, and he was surrendered militant. So when I contested, there was a things that the new boy has came, having an outlook, and he can transform, kind of things was the issue in that elections. And also our party workers, they has gone to many levels to get the vote. And other some functions, actually what I feel that British has passed the parliament, but not the parliamentary in India. Because when we formed the parliament, our ratio of education was very low. And we have to represent India with that source of people who is actually in that freedom movement. We have to accommodate and we have to progress India with those people. And it's nice to see that all the young people are now into the police. Earlier, the parliamentarian and the local, voters having a vast differences. They used to scare of the politicians, the way they behave, they move, they honk sirens, and all these kind of things were there earlier with a very big differences was there among the voters and the representative. Now it has gone down. Now it has gone down, and all are accessible to the public because before it was like that, the people comes to the representative. Now things have changed. Now representative has to go to the people in the new Indian politics anyway. So it has changed a lot. And about the things, I agree with you. The way to protest is not to go to the level, but they can walk out of the house. If it is not agreed, they can walk out and then protest in any other means.
They should express their opinion.
Opinion and can walk out. No, expression of the opinion is the very biggest point in our parliament actually. Once somebody stand up for expression of opinion, another 100 of people will stand up to suppress him. That's make the chaotic actually situation. Yeah, that's usually happen. But I also agree that it should not happen. We should minimize the aggressions.
You should go to parliament.
I'll again say that I'm not of that club. Actually, I'm a member of legislative assembly, not of the parliament.
Thank you. Speaking about only on the question, in my constituency, dynasty doesn't work because I'm a teacher's son. First time I got elected to this thing. And when I fought against Mr. Waiko, who had been there for 20 years. And he has been a person who has been on Tamil issue, has been to these things. Really, the things works in my constituency is the alliance partners, that is how our alliances are stitched, and the money matters because the way the opposition candidate spends, you have to match with it. If you are not able to match with it, you are out. You can't play cricket and football, and when he is playing cricket, you can't play football. You will be equal. Therefore, we have to play the same thing. Thank you.
Good. Dr. Chowdhury.
Thank you. I come from non-India South Asia. I'm from Bangladesh. I used to be foreign minister of Bangladesh. Previous government and before that. I want to commend each one of you for your interventions. I think it's a credit to India's democracy that the way they are able to throw up people with your credentials into positions of leadership. And I'm also pleased to see that among you and among your peers, there's an intellectual acceptance of the fact that India is large, India is the preeminent South Asian actor, and India has a disproportionately more responsible role to play in the region, in the neighborhood, and India is going about doing it. A specific question to Mr. Borgelheim, because I come from Sylhet, and Sylhet is, as you know, is a tremendous, part of Assam, and there was a tremendous goodwill even today in Sylhet. I myself was born in Hong Kong, maybe close to your constituency. However, there is one aspect in which there is some, not differences, but inability to understand is this question of change of outcomes. The Congress in Assam takes a very positive view, we know, and BJP opposes this. But time is running out on it. Is there something that the Congress in Assam is doing to implement this decision on the exchange of outcomes along the borders quickly?
See, the question is that once a part of that provinces, that Eastern India provinces, they formed Bangladesh now a independent country. We are having a very similar with the boundary area and border area. And recently there was a transform of land deals happened between the India government and the Bangladesh government. And the Assam, many party has opposed to it. And I personally, that time I was a 2-month-old legislator, very new to the system. And I visited one of the area in Mankachar. So what I have seen there, that time I had that one member of parliament from Assam, that time Legislative Assembly of Assam, won in the electoral system pre-British, 36 to 47 that part. And after winning from the Indian system, he became a home minister in Pakistan afterwards because he refused to stay with India. but the village is still under Indian jurisdiction in the record, as per record. But as per that line of control, they have fixed a fence, you know the fence, the huge fence. Maybe you were the foreign minister during that time. So we can, 85 we started the boundary fencing and all. But the people out in that side, other side of Bangladesh, is so much of harsh and all. If we send somebody who, I mean, there was a border issue in that area, somebody come to our side also. When you seize the, I mean, send them to the Bangladesh part, they kill the big, I mean, at night, the Bangladesh authority kill in the border. It's very sensitive. I mean, I don't know how the people will take, but it's sensitive. And the issues is raising in Assam is like that Congress support Bangladesh-based Muslim people. And there are many people, Hindu Bangladesh people also has came down after 1972, they had shifted to almost all the part of the Nagaon, Kachar, Karimganj, and all these Bengali people are basically the origin of Bangladesh. But nobody targeted them because they are Hindus. Everybody targeted those who are Muslims coming from the Assam other part. Yes, obviously there was an issue, and pre-75 we have made a treaty that those who came after 71, 72, they will be as a Bangladeshi citizen, all other who came before that they will be treated as a Indian citizens. That issue, because once is a part of us, India, once is a part of Assam, we cannot differentiate at that age. And somebody of our opposition, I'm sorry that the main opposition, the BJP is not there. They are saying that you are addressing the 100 years issue. And we said that we have got independence in 47, partition in 72. How it can be 100 years issue? And we are sensibly doing it. That issues, we are protecting the original Indians and those who are having these the foreigners or the tribunals issue, we are doing it very sensibly. But another thing we suggested in the assembly that we should issue permit, like Indonesia and Singapore kind of things, work permit kind of things we are planning, so that because almost all the agricultural economy is done by the immigrants. Bangladesh of 75% of our agricultural economy is kind of land. So it's a bigger issue. It's not a small issue to be discussed over here. So if I am correctly, I don't know, addressing the.
You are addressing it. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Rona Joe?
I have a couple of questions, not for the but the panel in general. The question of money and the use of money in elections was raised by Professor Muni. I just want to ask you, and it's now an open secret that candidates spend much more than what is the mandated limit set by the Election Commission. So, do you agree that there is a need to reform campaign finance, and suggestions like the state funding elections are things of that sort occupying the mind space of MPs? And as a writer, is the MP lat scheme where the MPs get a certain amount of money, and I believe now it's rupees 5 crore. Do you agree that that is a program that is a viable one? And the second question on the larger question of this in India. The last 2 decades has really seen, more than actually the last 25 years, we've seen the rise of regional parties. So would you in the coming, not just the next election, but in the coming elections, see the space for a non-Congress, non-BJP third front, which historically has not had much success? I'd like to hear the comments on that.
I think you can choose whoever wants to answer.
Sekhar is the right person.
We, RLD, Samajwadi, and
all of you don't have to answer. Whoever you think in the interest of time, because there's so many other questions.
Do we need to reform our campaign finances? Yes. Is the answer state funding? Maybe not, because the national parties will have an advantage over regional parties. It depends on how you sort of work it out. But certainly we need to bring in transparency into our system so that the manner in which we raise finances is made public, so that if the governments act in a certain way, people can identify whether they've been lobbied with or not. This transparency certainly needs to come in. Money is not the be-all and end-all in politics. My state, we spend very little money actually. It's very, very little. And in my view, money can influence 5% to 7% of the voters. That's about it. And that's my constituency and my big state. In terms of what the next results will look like, in my view, I think there's a certain amount of disillusionment with both the national parties. Issues continue to remain in the voters' mind very, very local. So it's about the drain outside the house, it's about basic pension services being given to them. The larger issues have not actually sunk in with majority of the voters. So stuff like the MP lad, which parliamentarians get, is very effective in combating local issues. And that's what's expected of parliamentarians, even though it's not your job profile. But if you go to a village, you'll get flooded with requests on fixing the road, fixing the lights, fixing the sewage problems, etc., etc. So MP lads, yes, is an effective tool. It can be made more effective. You can argue about ways of streamlining it or bringing more development projects in. But certain amount of resource with MPs is required to meet people's expectations. The next election, in my view, would be largely a large number of regional parties getting prominence, because there is some disillusionment with the government, and the principal opposition has not really picked up on that disillusionment effectively. So in my view, yes, you see a large number of regional parties. Will it be stable? I think so. There was a time when the Congress used to say nobody but the Congress has a stable government. But in 2000, 2004, Vajpayee called up a 22-party alliance and ran it successfully for 4 years. In fact, called elections a year early. So I think that trend of small, unstable governments is collapsed. It is slowly fading away. Local regional leaders also are understanding the need to carry on the governance for a longer period of time.
Anybody else?
I wanted to say something about the MP land. I don't agree with what Kalikesh or Chen say, but why we need that MP land? Because MP's job is to make laws in the parliament and to debate. But we are given 5 crores, we are looking after that 5 crores only. People flood in with applications that my roads, and I have 1,500 villages in my constituency, 1,500. So I cannot satisfy everybody. That's why in next election, you won't see 60% of MPs you have in this parliament, in the 15th Lok Sabha. You won't see 60%. And that is because even if they are doing a good job, they will be thrown out of the office. This is because of MP land. Because you cannot do work in every village. People say, make my road. They don't see that 1 kilometer of road costs around 30, 35, 40 lakhs. And you need to do work in every village. They will say that you have done in that village and you haven't done in my village. So MP lad cannot satisfy everybody. And about the next general election, I don't know, but I think that that third front has very good chance.
I just want to say it will be interesting analysis, and you brought it out. How have the win rates for incumbents, how has that performed after institutionalization of this MP land? Whether that has changed, gone down, gone up? That'll be interesting research. Get some guy to do it. Tell us what happens. But I see, when I go to the constituency, there are gaps. There are multiple agencies doing work. There's a problem of coordination, there's a state agency, there's, central programs. But there are still gaps.
Janji, I want to say,
yeah.
People don't ask the district administration that where have you spent the 200 crores which
that
you get
coming every year.
But they will ask you where have you spent this 5 crores.
So that's a great aspect of it.
That's a great aspect.
It's tough for us.
How can you?
Makes it tough for us. No, but people are very aware of how you're spending it. They ask for regular accounts, and I'm actually happy because now at least people are coming for road. Otherwise, they would come. My brother is there. Please get a transfer, or I need a gun license. I'm sorry, you are in government. You have to face those issues. I'm in opposition. I just say I can't help. So now 99% of people who approach me are with applications of build a road, or I'm happy with that.
Dr. Riaz Khan, you have a question.
Mike.
Thank you very much. I have a comment and also a question. First of all, the debating and discussing, India is a very complex country, and I don't think in the diversity India has, there can be anything other than people coming together and disagreeing from time to time, agreeing from time to time. Now, I was born before partition, and I now live in, we moved to Pakistan from East Punjab, and I saw the devastation. I had questions about partition because, not because of religious reason, because I felt the unity of Punjab, the historical unity of Punjab was destroyed. And it still saddens me. Now, as I grow old, I wish Punjab was what it was when I was growing up as a young child in Jalandhar, Amritsar, and Gurdaspur. Well, partition did, as you know, it was a religious question that led to the partition. A great deal actually depends on people like yourself, and particularly on Indian democracy and Indian people. Partition did not solve the problem of religion. By 2030, South Asia is going to have 1/3 of all Muslim population. That's 532 billion. Pakistan would have the largest Muslim population, and after that, I'm sure you know, India would have the second largest Muslim population, and then the third would be Bangladesh. What I'd like to know, what is your vision of dealing with religious diversity and religious issues, and specifically in India? There are, according to the estimates, there will be 232 million Muslims. One of the great achievements of Indian Constitution has been that it has uplifted 250 million people from the scheduled caste. And I think the evidence is very clear that affirmative action has worked in India, and India, as the shining example, Indian Constitution is one of the most remarkable constitutions in that respect. But if you look at the recent falling from such a report, the Indian Muslims actually are going backwards. Almost all communities, particularly the scheduled castes and scheduled territories, are moving forward. In fact, I can give you statistics if you want. But the evidence is that Indian Muslims are going backward. Now, in a democracy, when you leave 13–15% of people behind, and whenever there's a disjunction between ideology and practice, you're going to have a problem. Do you have a vision, some understanding or comments about what do you think are likely policies which might actually address this question?
My state has majority of Muslims. My party, as Professor was saying, that a lot of disruption in the parliament. One of the reasons last session was implementation of such a committee report. That committee report has come in 2006. It has said that the Muslims of India are more backward than the Dalits of India. So you were right that a lot has to be done to improve their status. And the government is doing. The different state governments are also doing some, because there are concentration of Muslim population in Uttar Pradesh, in Andhra Pradesh. They want reservation for Muslims also. But in our constitution, as you know, that you cannot give reservation on basis of religion. So there is some problem. But the government is also the present government of UPA, and my government, especially in Uttar Pradesh, wants to do something for these minorities, because you are right. You have rightly said that in last 65 years, the work that should have been done is not done that way. Earlier, my Congress friends won't agree with me, but the Muslim community has been used only for votes. They should have been educated. The major problem which I see in this community is education, lack of education. people, young child is start working at the age of 10, 12. And what I see in my constituency, there is a large portion of Muslim community. What I see, they are not educated, that's why they have lot many children, and they are not educated, and they are doing the same job what their father did. If he is an electrician, all his sons will be doing the same job. They are not properly educated. And we have to educate the community also, because most of them want them to study in madrasa. Madrasas are also improving. They are giving modern education also, but certain madrasas are still teaching them the old things, but things are changing. But that's why we are saying that what Rangnath Commission, what such a committee said in their reports, that should be implemented.
You mentioned that the exclusion from affirmative action of Muslims was limited. Am I right that Sikhs and Buddhists scheduled castes are included, but only Christian and Muslims are excluded? I was surprised to read that.
This is because they were considered Hindus.
We don't have a caste system. Sikhs have a caste system.
And Buddhists also considered Hindus.
No, we don't have a caste system, but they're considered
Hindus, they are considered Hindus. The Sikhs, the Jains, Buddhists. There is. But there is caste system. There is Muslims also. Backward.
They can qualify under OBCs, right?
They can.
They can qualify.
They can. There are several that are enumerated in this.
That's why. Yeah.
There's one thing that somehow you've got that's the basic crux of the problem. And in Bihar, there have been large movements by Dalit Muslims asking precisely the same questions are being posed, that why was a specific separate notification given for Buddhists and Sikhs and not us? The argument that is given is because they were derived from Hindu, and the pain of the traditional sort of segregation in the Hindus has carried on in their caste today. So therefore, even in Sikhs today, you find Dalit Sikhs being treated separately. On the ground, that is true, but the same holds true for Muslims that are converted. But for some reason, our majority is uncomfortable with issues of conversion of Hindus into Muslims, which is why perhaps we fail to grapple with the situation. But today, you need a constitutional amendment to do it, and now courts are also saying there have been judgments on this, that even if you put something in the ninth schedule, the Supreme Court will still decide on the constitutionality of it. So therefore, our constitution doesn't permit on religion, and so how
Court
will
says that
give
you
to
cannot
them?
change the fabric of the constitution. That is because if we form a law also, they will strike it down.
But how many kids from madrasas are getting into universities? That's a big question. So
No,
without
because
that,
things are changing. We have to educate the Muslim community. That hasn't been done before. Now it is been done slowly. So,
Can I just ask a supplementary question to Manika? Does this backwardness among Muslims also prevalent in South? I thought South the Muslims do much better.
Not that much, because basically Kerala and Kerala has more Muslim population comparing to Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is having only 4.5 in the whole population census. But, the basic thing is on the education part, what he was telling about. The states which has invested on primary education is able to solve that problem early, and Kerala, being a more advanced state in many other issues, is also advanced in the minorities welfare also. And with that thing, I wanted to add only one thing, is the Prime Minister's 15-point program, which by Dr. Manmohan Singh's government's one of the initiatives, is identified around 90 districts, minority concentrated, 90 districts where special programs has been run for schools, for education, for scholarship on students. There are things happening on the minority front. And in Tamil Nadu, Christian minorities are more than the Muslim minorities.
I'm told we have time for just 2 questions, because after that we have a little tea and mingle, so that you can personally talk to them. Are they? Yes, Shanta. Yeah. And two ladies will ask the last two questions.
Mike,
You went first.
Ladies have the last word. It's very heartening to hear from young parliamentarians the outlook of India. My question is really about the two stories coming from India. One is a very positive one, where you see a large amount of growth and success which is being projected. The second story is about the poverty we are talking about. And if you look at the left-wing extremism in India, which is spreading, and the real issues of poverty, which is really afflicting a large section of the population, I think there is a poverty of ideas, in the sense of really targeting what's happening at the grassroots level. And all of you have made a very important point in terms of education, but education for what? If you have a large number of people being educated and not being able to match the skill set in terms of the jobs, then you also have issues at hand. So we don't have a large scale planning in terms of looking at a long-term picture in the country. And all of you are doing tremendous work in terms of your constituencies, but these are seen as like pockets of success, not really a story of success of India. And if you really don't have an outlook which looks at a national strategy, which is looking at issues at the ground level and integrating at the top strategic level, I think India is not going to go ahead the way you think it would. So there is an issue in terms of looking at a larger picture wherein regional parties which are important but not really giving that large national picture. And that is critical because if you don't do it at this point of time as elections are coming, we are going to face many crises in terms of the times to come. Thank you.
Anybody wants to come back? No. Pratima?
Yeah, can I just ask my questions? It's a similar question, but I've distinguished it into rural and urban rather than state and national. Do you see a dissonance between rural issues and things like, say, land irrigation, farmer suicides, general agricultural reform, and urban issues which are more publicized and which are more concerned with, the middle class are more concerned with like corruption and, growth, economic development, things like that? And are the issues on which elections are being fought, are they changing progressively, or are they mostly local and very similar and it'll just be based on your constituency?
So I think the interesting change which has happened in the last 40 years is that the constituencies and the population, and I'm talking completely from a political perspective, we have almost 50% of our constituencies which have some urban base. So there has been a large-scale urbanization of the politics. There is, there's some increasing focus on urban areas now as far as political parties and political systems are concerned. However, you must realize that in any urban area, voting is never more than 40%. So like in my constituency, I have 10% urban, we have voted 40%, but 90% of rural constituency voted 75%. So my focus as a politician will continue to be more on the rural areas, while understanding that urban areas act as nerve centers. So if you do something good there, it translates into a good message in a larger area. The other lady who spoke before, I don't think there's a dichotomy between, regional parties having, or us as individual MPs having a focus on our constituencies, and alongside that having a larger vision on certain areas, certain sectors of reform on a national level. I don't think there's an issue with that. Yes, there are many reforms that the governments need to do and have not been able to do. I think the inherent difficulty of a regional party having the numbers itself to reform is the issue. I mean, any one regional party can have a thought on a certain subject, but they cannot implement it because they don't have 274 MPs. And different areas have different compulsions, and different areas have different focuses and dynamics change. But ultimately, I think there is a vision, which, let me just finish, you can come back to me on that one. And there is a vision which is planned. In my view, the way we do our planning is incorrect. We have, again, a very centralized system of planning. So the planning commission sits in Delhi and decides that for a forested left-wing extremist area in Odisha, this is what's going to happen. For the hilly state of Assam, the same model will be lifted and put onto Assam. The same thing will be done in Andamans, which is an island state. You know, so the system of planning is flawed. Secondly, implementation in our states is an issue. So while we are very input focused, when we talk of education, we say, all right, and this is what the HRD ministry says, the minister says when he gives a speech, we put up 10,000 schools, we've hired 25,000 teachers who are not output focused. We don't realize that a class 5, majority of the class 5 pass outs of rural schools in India can't sign their name in English. Now, these are issues which we need to grapple with. One of the ways to do it is to have pockets of excellences and allow that model to translate further.
Thank you. I don't think we can have any more questions. I want to thank the panel. I think they have done an excellent job. Early this year, Satan was there. There was a Singapore delegation that went to India for a strategic dialogue. And we had a young minister address us, Mr. Sachin Pilot. I thought it was a brilliant off-the-cuff speech. At that time, we wondered whether the young parliamentarians are of the same caliber. I think I would say without reservation that they seem to be a very good group of youngsters, robust, able to take on questions, sometimes defending the wrong thing, you know, like the well in the parliament. But generally on the right track. So I'm optimistic. The outlook for India is moderately good. So on that basis, let me give it back to the MC to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, panelists, for sharing insights, perspective, and providing for a very engaging discussion. I will request now Ambassador Pillai to present 2 of ISA's books to our panelists. The first book is titled Socio-Political and Economic Challenges in South Asia, edited by Professor Tan Tai Yong. The second title, India's Strategic Interest in Southeast Asia and Singapore, by Ambassador C. Chakman, Adjunct Research Associate Professor.
Thanks, Dan. Well done. Well, thank you. We'll have some tea, chai, and then have some discussion.